The USS Vengeance moved slowly through the darkness of space. The ship was enormous, stretching almost 2 kilometers from front to back. Her metal hull was covered in scars and dents from many years of service. Large gun turrets lined both sides of the ship, each one holding massive cannons that could destroy anything in their path. In a time when most ships used energy weapons and sleek designs, the Vengeance looked like something from another era. Commander Jake Harrison stood on the bridge with his hands behind his back. He watched the screens showing 40 ships from the Keltharan Empire gathering in front of them. These alien vessels were beautiful and modern, with shiny metal surfaces and glowing shields around them. The Keltharans had come to this neutral meeting place to talk about letting humans join the Galactic Council, the group that controlled most of the known galaxy. Lieutenant Amy Foster sat at her station, monitoring the communication systems. She suddenly looked up with concern on her face. The young woman had been with the Vengeance for 3 years and knew when something unusual was happening. "Sir, we have an incoming message from the Keltharan flagship," she said. "They are broadcasting on all channels. They want everyone to hear what they are saying." Jake nodded slowly. He had a feeling he knew what was coming. "Put it on the main screen." The large view screen at the front of the bridge changed to show a Keltharan admiral. The alien had 4 eyes that blinked one after another, and his mouth had strange parts that moved when he talked. Jake had learned that this movement meant the alien found something funny. "Humans," the admiral began, and his voice sounded like he was talking to children. "We appreciate that you sent a ship to escort us. However, we must ask you something. Is this old museum piece really the best ship your people have? Perhaps you should have left it in whatever junkyard you found it in." Laughter came through the speakers from the other Keltharan ships. Jake felt his jaw tighten with anger, but he kept his face calm and neutral. His crew was watching him, waiting to see how he would respond to the insult. "The Vengeance has served humanity well for 30 years, Admiral," Jake replied in a steady voice. "She may not be new, but she is here to make sure this diplomatic mission stays safe." "Safe?" The Keltharan admiral's mouth parts spread wide in what his species considered a big smile. "I promise you, Commander, our fleet does not need protection from pirates or raiders, especially not from a ship that belongs in a history museum." The screen went dark and the bridge became very quiet. Jake could feel everyone looking at him, wondering what he would do next. Lieutenant Amy Foster waited at her station. Navigation Officer Pete Graham checked his instruments nervously. Weapons Officer Carl Bennett kept his hands on his controls, ready for orders. "Lieutenant Foster," Jake said quietly, "send a message to Earth Command. Tell them that diplomatic relations are moving forward as planned." "Yes, sir," Amy replied, her fingers moving across her control panel. Pete Graham cleared his throat. He was a veteran officer who had served on the Vengeance for 15 years. "Commander, the Keltharan fleet is starting to move toward the meeting coordinates. Should we stay where we are?" "Stay with them, Mr. Graham. We are their escort, whether they want us to be or not." The Vengeance's engines began to hum with power, pushing the massive ship forward through space. Jake allowed himself a small smile that nobody else could see. The Keltharans were not the first aliens to make fun of humanity's oldest battleship. They probably would not be the last either. But Jake knew something that the aliens did not understand yet. Making jokes and laughing at someone did not win battles. Having the right weapons and knowing how to use them won battles. The Vengeance might look old and outdated, but she had survived 30 years of combat for good reasons. Her guns were older technology, yes, but they worked perfectly well. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The convoy of ships moved together through the empty space between star systems. The Keltharan vessels stayed in a tight formation, their shields glowing with blue light. The Vengeance followed behind them like a protective guardian. On the bridge, the crew went about their duties professionally, checking systems and monitoring sensors. Jake walked around the bridge, stopping at different stations to check on his officers. This was something he did regularly to stay informed about everything happening on his ship. He stopped next to Amy Foster's communication station. "Any other chatter from the Keltharan fleet?" he asked. Amy shook her head. "Nothing directed at us, sir. But I am picking up some private communications between their ships. They are still talking about us. Most of it is just them making jokes about how old the Vengeance is." "Let them laugh," Jake said. "Words do not hurt us." He moved to the weapons station where Carl Bennett sat. The weapons officer was a quiet man who rarely smiled, but he was the best gunner Jake had ever served with. Carl could hit a target the size of a small vehicle from thousands of kilometers away. How are the main batteries, Mr. Bennett? All systems are green, sir. We could fire right now if needed. The guns are old, but they are maintained perfectly. Every system has been checked and rechecked. Good, I want to be ready for anything. This diplomatic mission is important, and we need to make sure nothing goes wrong. Carl nodded. Understood, sir. We will be ready. Jake returned to his command chair and sat down. He looked at the main screen showing the Keltheran fleet ahead of them. The alien ships were impressive with their advanced technology and powerful shields, but Jake had been in enough battles to know that impressive appearance did not always mean impressive performance. The Vengeance might not look as pretty as the Keltheran vessels. Her hull was scratched and dented. Her design was based on old Earth naval ships that sailed on water. Her weapons used simple kinetic energy instead of fancy plasma or energy beams. But she had one advantage that the aliens did not understand yet. She was built to take punishment and keep fighting. She was built to deliver devastating firepower when it mattered most. Pete Graham spoke up from his navigation station. Sir, we will reach the final meeting coordinates in approximately 6 hours at current speed. Very good. Maintain course and speed. All crew members should rotate through meal breaks. I want everyone rested and alert when we arrive. The hours passed slowly as the convoy traveled through space. Jake used the time to review reports and check on different parts of the ship. The Vengeance had a crew of 800 people, and keeping them all working together smoothly required constant attention. As they got closer to their destination, Jake felt something nagging at the back of his mind. Something felt wrong, though he could not explain exactly what it was. He had learned over the years to trust these feelings. They had saved his life more than once. The diplomatic convoy had been traveling for 6 hours when suddenly every alarm on the bridge started screaming at once. Red lights flashed across multiple stations. Amy Foster's hands flew across her control panel as she tried to make sense of what the sensors were detecting. Contact, Amy shouted, her voice filled with urgency. Multiple signatures are dropping out of faster-than-light travel. I am reading 60 vessels. No, wait, 70 vessels. They are surrounding us! Jake jumped out of his command chair and moved closer to the main screen. His heart was pounding, but his voice stayed calm. Can you identify who they are? The computer is matching the signatures now, sir. They match Vraxian raiders. This looks like a full war pack. The main view screen changed to show enemy ships appearing all around them, in bright flashes of distorted light. The Vraxian vessels were ugly and dangerous looking, built with sharp angles and covered in weapons. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Vraxians. They were the most violent and aggressive pirate group in 3 sectors of space. They attacked merchant ships, stole cargo, and killed anyone who got in their way. The face of the Keltheran admiral appeared on the communication screen again. All of his earlier confidence and smugness had disappeared completely. Now he looked scared and desperate. His 4 eyes were wide with fear and his mouth parts were trembling. Human vessel, we are under attack, the admiral said quickly. The enemy is targeting our shields with electromagnetic pulse weapons. Our defensive systems are failing. We request immediate assistance. Jake watched as blue lightning bolts jumped across the hulls of the Keltheran ships. Their advanced shields flickered like dying light bulbs and then went dark one by one. The technology that made the Keltheran fleet the pride of the Galactic Council was being shut down. Systematically by the Vraxian weapons, Pete Graham looked at his navigation screens with a grim expression on his face. They planned this carefully, sir. The Vraxians knew the Keltherans would be here. This was not a random attack. Someone told them where to find us. Sir, the Keltheran flagship is asking us to draw the enemy fire while they try to restart their defensive systems, Amy reported. Her voice was steady despite the danger. Their weapons are offline. They cannot fight back. They are completely helpless out there. Jake's mind worked quickly through all the tactical options available to them. The Vraxian fleet had more ships than the convoy by almost 2 to 1. The Keltherans were effectively useless without their shields and weapons working. By every rule of military strategy that Jake had learned, the smart decision would be to retreat immediately and call for help. But the Vengeance had not survived 30 years of combat by always making the smart decision. Sometimes you had to stand and fight even when the odds looked bad. Bring us about, Jake ordered firmly. Put us between the raiders and the diplomatic convoy. All hands to battle stations. I want every crew member at their post right now. Power up the main batteries, sir. Pete Graham looked uncertain and surprised. All of them? Every gun? Every single gun, Mr. Graham. Let us show these raiders what an old relic can actually do. Throughout the massive ship, systems that had been in standby mode suddenly came to life. Deep in the Vengeance's hull, enormous capacitors began charging with enough electrical energy to power a small city. The targeting computers were ancient by modern galactic standards, but they were incredibly precise and accurate. These systems had been maintained and upgraded carefully over 3 decades. They locked onto the advancing enemy vessels with mechanical precision. The Vraxian commander sent a message on an open channel that everyone could hear. His face appeared on the screen, showing reptilian features twisted into an angry snarl. His skin was covered in green scales and his yellow eyes gleamed with cruel confidence. "Foolish humans," the Vraxian commander hissed. "You cannot stop us. We are 70 ships and you are only one. Surrender the Keltharans to us now and we will let you leave with your pathetic old ship still in one piece." Jake stood up from his chair and walked closer to the screen. His voice was calm and cold without any emotion showing. "This is Commander Jake Harrison of the USS Vengeance. You have 10 seconds to withdraw from this sector and leave immediately. After that, we will consider your presence here an act of war against humanity and our allies." The Vraxian commander's laughter sounded like rocks scraping against metal. It was an ugly, harsh sound that made everyone on the bridge feel uncomfortable. "You think we are afraid of one outdated human warship? We will tear you apart piece by piece and sell your scrap metal for profit." The Vraxian ships began moving closer, forming an attack pattern that would let them fire from multiple angles at once. Their weapons were charging up, ready to unleash devastating firepower. The raiders clearly believed this would be an easy victory. Jake looked over at Carl Bennett at the weapons station. The weapons officer had been waiting patiently with his finger hovering just above the firing controls. His face showed no expression, but his eyes were focused and ready. Carl had served on the Vengeance longer than almost anyone else on the crew. He knew exactly what the ship could do. "Time is up," Jake said simply. There was no anger in his voice, no excitement, just cold determination. "Fire everything." Carl's fingers moved across his controls with practiced efficiency. "Firing port batteries now, sir." The Vengeance responded to her crew's commands like a living thing waking from sleep. The ship had been built for one purpose above all others: to deliver overwhelming firepower against any enemy. Now she was about to show the galaxy exactly what that meant. The first broadside erupted from the portside gun batteries. 12 massive cannons fired at exactly the same moment in perfect synchronization. The guns had been aimed and calibrated with incredible precision. When they fired, the entire ship shuddered slightly from the recoil force. The projectiles that left those guns were not energy beams or plasma bolts like most modern weapons. They were solid slugs of depleted uranium metal. Each slug weighed 3 tons and was accelerated to an incredible velocity, traveling at a significant fraction of the speed of light. The kinetic energy contained in each projectile was absolutely devastating. The Vraxian formation learned in the most brutal way possible that their shields were designed for the wrong type of threat. Energy shields worked by dispersing concentrated energy across a wide area. They were very effective against lasers and plasma weapons, but against solid projectiles moving at near light speed, they might as well have been made of tissue paper. The first 4 Vraxian ships that the Vengeance targeted simply ceased to exist. The kinetic rounds hit them with such tremendous force that the ships vaporized instantly. Metal, machinery, and crew were all converted into expanding clouds of superheated plasma and debris. There was no time for escape pods or emergency procedures. One moment the ships were there, and the next moment they were gone. The next 6 ships in the formation were crippled rather than destroyed. The uranium slugs punched completely through their hulls, leaving massive holes that vented atmosphere into space. Emergency systems tried to seal the breaches, but the damage was too extensive. These ships were out of the fight, drifting helplessly with their life support failing. "Port batteries reloading," Carl Bennett reported. His voice was tight with adrenaline but still professional. "Starboard batteries are ready and charged. Target lock has been acquired on the next wave of enemy ships." "Fire at will, Mr. Bennett," Jake commanded. "Do not let up." The Vengeance pivoted on her axis with surprising grace for such an enormous vessel, bringing her starboard guns into position. Another thunderous salvo erupted from the starboard side of the Vengeance. The massive guns spoke again with deadly authority, and more Vraxian ships died in brilliant explosions that lit up the darkness of space. The vacuum of space carried no sound, but through the view screen, everyone on the bridge could see the silent destruction blooming like deadly flowers across the battlefield. On board the Keltheran flagship, Admiral Theron stood frozen in shock as he watched the carnage unfolding before his eyes. His crew had managed to restart their sensor arrays, which gave them a clear and detailed view of what the human battleship was doing to the Vraxian fleet. The Admiral's 4 eyes blinked rapidly as his brain tried to process what he was seeing. How is this even possible? His tactical officer whispered in disbelief. The young officer's hands shook as he read the sensor data. Those are kinetic weapons, simple primitive kinetic weapons. They should not be this effective against modern warships. Our tactical database says kinetic weapons are outdated technology. Effective? Admiral Theron's mouth parts clicked involuntarily, a nervous habit of his species. They are not just effective. They are absolutely devastating. The human ship is annihilating the raiders like they are nothing. I have never seen such destruction in my entire career. The Vraxian fleet had entered this battle feeling confident and superior because of their numerical advantage. They had 70 ships against 1 ancient human vessel. By every logical calculation, they should have won easily. But now they were discovering a harsh truth. Numbers meant absolutely nothing when you faced overwhelming firepower that you had no defense against. The raiders began to panic. Their formation broke apart as individual ships tried to scatter in different directions. Some attempted to flank the massive human battleship from multiple angles, hoping that attacking from different directions simultaneously would work better. Other ships tried to get close enough to use their short-range weapons. None of their tactics helped at all. The Vengeance's point defense systems suddenly came alive across her entire hull. Hundreds of smaller autocannons began tracking the Vraxian fighters and corvettes with mechanical precision. These smaller guns could not hurt capital ships, but they were perfect for dealing with light vessels. The autocannons spat continuous streams of tungsten rounds that shredded the smaller enemy craft before they could get close enough to do any damage. A group of Vraxian ships managed to launch torpedoes at the Vengeance. The crew watched tensely as the weapons streaked toward them. But the torpedoes never reached their target. The point defense systems detected them immediately and engaged with proximity-fused shells. These special rounds detonated when they got close to the torpedoes, creating clouds of shrapnel that destroyed the incoming weapons long before they could hit the battleship. "Forward batteries, prepare to fire," Jake ordered, his voice cutting through the controlled chaos on the bridge. The Vengeance's bow-mounted weapons were the largest guns on the entire ship. They were massive cannons that required enormous amounts of power to operate. These guns had been designed for destroying heavily armored targets or conducting orbital bombardment of planetary surfaces. They had never been fired at another ship before in actual combat. Carl Bennett checked his targeting solutions one more time to make absolutely certain everything was perfect. "Forward batteries ready, sir." Target locked on the enemy command carrier. "Range is optimal. We have a clear shot." "Fire," Jake commanded. The massive shells crossed the distance to the Vraxian command carrier in just a few seconds. The targeting was so precise that each shell hit exactly where it was supposed to. The first round punched completely through the carrier's forward section, creating a hole big enough to fly a small ship through. The second shell struck the middle of the vessel, and the entire ship folded in half like a cheap toy being bent by a child. The third shell was almost unnecessary, but it hammered into the dying vessel anyway, breaking the carrier's spine and sending both halves spinning away in different directions, trailing debris and bodies. "Enemy command ship has been destroyed," Amy Foster reported from her station. Her voice was amazed and slightly shocked. "The entire raider fleet is breaking formation now. They are trying to retreat. They are running away, sir." "Do not let them escape," Jake said, and his voice had turned hard and cold. "Any ship that participated in this ambush does not leave this sector. I want them stopped. But, Mr. Bennett, target their faster-than-light drives specifically. Disable those systems, but try not to destroy the ships completely. I want prisoners, not corpses floating in space." Pete Graham glanced over at his commander with a questioning look. "Sir, that requires remarkably precise shooting at these ranges. Are you certain we can hit such small targets? Our targeting computers were originally built for planetary bombardment, Mr. Graham. They were designed to hit specific buildings from orbit. Enemy ships are much easier targets than that." Jake's expression remained hard and determined. "These raiders attacked a diplomatic mission that was under our protection. They need to answer for what they tried to do here. But I want prisoners who can stand trial, not just floating wreckage. The Galactic Council needs to see that justice is done properly according to civilized laws. For the next 20 minutes, the Vengeance methodically hunted down every fleeing Vraxian vessel. The raiders scattered in all directions, desperately trying to escape to safe jumping distance where they could engage their faster-than-light drives. But the Vengeance's targeting systems tracked each ship with cold precision. One by one, the fleeing raiders were struck by carefully aimed shots. Each target received a single round that penetrated their hull and destroyed their slipspace drive engines. The shots were surgical in their accuracy, blowing apart the faster-than-light systems while leaving the rest of each ship mostly intact. Without the ability to jump to light speed, the raiders were stranded in normal space with no way to escape. Carl Bennett worked his controls with the focused intensity of a surgeon performing a delicate operation. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he calculated firing solutions for target after target. "This is some of the finest shooting I have ever done, sir. The targeting computer is performing flawlessly. You are doing excellent work, Mr. Bennett. Keep it up." The crew of the Vengeance worked together like a well-oiled machine. Every officer knew their job perfectly and executed their duties with professional efficiency. Amy Foster kept communication channels open and monitored all frequencies. Pete Graham adjusted the ship's position constantly to give Carl the best possible firing angles. Engineering crews deep in the ship kept the power flowing smoothly to the guns and systems. On the Keltheran flagship, Admiral Theron and his officers watched in absolute awe as the human battleship systematically dismantled an entire pirate fleet. The precision of the shooting was almost unbelievable. Each shot hit exactly where it was supposed to, causing just enough damage to disable the target without destroying it completely. "They are taking prisoners," one of the Keltheran tactical officers said in wonder. "In the middle of a battle against superior numbers, they are still showing restraint and mercy. They could easily kill all the raiders, but they are choosing not to." Admiral Theron nodded slowly, his 4 eyes focused on the tactical display. "This tells us something very important about humans. They have the power to destroy, but they choose to capture instead. They value life and law even in combat. These are not the actions of a savage or primitive species. This is the behavior of a truly civilized people." Another Keltheran officer spoke up nervously. "Admiral, should we attempt to assist them? Our shields are starting to come back online." "No," Theron said firmly. "Stay out of their way. The human ship has this situation completely under control. If we interfere now, we might accidentally become targets or disrupt their firing solutions. Let them finish what they started." Back on the Vengeance, the hunt continued. A group of 5 Vraxian ships tried to stay together for mutual protection as they fled. Carl tracked them carefully and fired a spread of shells that caught all 5 vessels in quick succession. Each ship lost its slipspace drive and went dead in space, drifting helplessly. 20 raiders disabled and drifting, Amy reported, keeping count of the crippled vessels. "We have 17 confirmed destroyed. The remaining ships are still attempting to escape. Stay on them," Jake ordered. "Not one of these raiders leaves this sector under their own power." The final minutes of the battle were almost anticlimactic compared to the furious opening salvos. The remaining Vraxian ships had lost all their courage and fighting spirit. They were running in complete panic now, desperately trying to reach minimum safe distance for a jump to faster than light speed. But the Vengeance was relentless and methodical in her pursuit. Carl Bennett called out each target as he acquired it. "Target 38, locked, firing." A single shot lanced out across space and struck the fleeing raider precisely in the engine section. "Target 39, locked, firing." Another perfect hit disabled another ship. The weapons officer had fallen into a smooth rhythm, working his controls with practiced ease. "Last target in range," Carl finally announced. "Target number 47, locked and firing." The final shell streaked through space and found its mark. The last Vraxian raider shuddered as the round destroyed its slipspace drive in a shower of sparks and venting gas. The ship went dark and began drifting, just like all the others. When that last shot was fired, the battlefield suddenly became very quiet and still. The Vengeance hung in space surrounded by crippled enemy vessels. Her guns were still hot from firing, and thin wisps of smoke drifted from her batteries before the vacuum quickly claimed them. Not a single new scar marked her already battle-worn hull. Despite being outnumbered badly, The enemy had not managed to land a single effective hit on the old battleship. Amy Foster checked her instruments carefully and then looked up with amazement in her eyes. "All hostile vessels are disabled or destroyed, sir. The battle is over. We won." A ragged cheer went up from the bridge crew. Officers who had maintained professional discipline during the fight now allowed themselves to celebrate. Pete Graham pumped his fist in the air. Even Carl Bennett allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. Jake remained standing calmly, though inside he felt immense relief. "Status report. Any damage to our ship?" "Minor stress to the gun mounts from sustained firing," Carl reported. "Nothing that cannot be easily repaired. All weapon systems are still operational and ready if needed." "Casualties?" "None, sir," Amy said with a smile. "Not a single injury reported from any deck. The enemy never got close enough to hurt us." Jake nodded with satisfaction, and then his expression became serious again. "Good work, everyone. But we are not finished yet. Amy, contact the Keltheran fleet. Get me Admiral Theron." The communication screen activated and showed the Keltheran admiral's face. The alien looked completely different from when Jake had last seen him. The arrogance and smugness were totally gone. In their place was something that looked like genuine respect and even a bit of awe. "Commander Harrison," Admiral Theron began, and his voice was subdued and humble. "I must offer you my most profound apologies for my earlier behavior, and my deepest gratitude for what you have just done. You saved not only my fleet, but the entire diplomatic mission. Without your intervention, we would all be dead or captured by now. I owe you a debt that I can never fully repay." Jake nodded curtly but did not make a big deal out of the thanks. "We were just doing our job, Admiral. Protecting this mission was our assignment. Is your fleet able to continue traveling to the, meeting point?" "Yes, our systems are coming back online now. Thanks to you and your crew, we suffered only minimal casualties. A few minor injuries from when our systems failed, but nothing serious." Admiral Theron paused, and his 4 eyes blinked in that sequence that showed he was thinking hard about something. "I must confess something to you, Commander. I have been a military officer for 30 years. I have witnessed many battles and many different weapon systems, but I have never seen firepower like what your ship just displayed. Your kinetic weapons are unlike anything in the Galactic Council's arsenal. How did humanity develop such devastating technology?" Jake considered his answer carefully before responding. "We did not develop these weapons specifically for space combat, Admiral. These guns were originally designed for naval warfare on Earth's oceans many centuries ago. We simply scaled them up in size and adapted them for use in the vacuum of space. It turns out that the basic principle has not changed in 500 years. If you put enough mass behind a projectile and accelerate it to high enough speed, nothing can stop it from doing terrible damage." "Elegant in its simplicity," Admiral Theron said thoughtfully, "and absolutely terrifying in its application. The Galactic Council has focused exclusively on energy weapons for thousands of years. We forgot that sometimes the old ways can be the most effective ways. We became so focused on advancing technology that we overlooked the value of proven methods." Carl Bennett spoke up from his weapons station, interrupting the conversation. "Sir, we are receiving distress calls from several of the disabled Vraxian vessels. They are requesting medical assistance and emergency rescue. Some of them have injured crew members and failing life support systems." Jake thought about it for a moment, weighing his options. These were enemies who had tried to kill them and the Keltherans just minutes ago, but they were also helpless prisoners now who needed aid. "Amy, contact the Keltheran fleet. Ask Admiral Theron if they have medical teams available to provide emergency assistance to the raiders." "I am already ahead of you, Commander," Admiral Theron said, having heard the exchange. "Despite what these raiders intended to do to us, the Galactic Council does not abandon those who are in need of help. We will dispatch medical ships immediately to provide assistance." The Admiral paused and looked directly at Jake through the screen. "I noticed that you disabled their ships rather than destroying them all. That shows remarkable restraint, Commander. Many officers would have simply eliminated the entire threat and not worried about taking prisoners. The galaxy does not need more death, Admiral. What it needs is justice. These raiders will stand trial for their crimes. Their crews will testify about who planned this ambush and why it happened. Someone set this entire attack up. Someone knew that your diplomatic convoy would be at these exact coordinates at this exact time. We need to find out who that someone is and what their motives are. Admiral Theron's mouth parts clicked together thoughtfully, a sign that he was considering something serious. You suspect this was more than just a simple pirate raid looking for easy targets. 70 Vraxian warships do not gather together by pure accident, Admiral. And they certainly do not happen to show up at the exact location of a secret diplomatic meeting just by random chance. Someone with access to classified information told them where to be and when to be there. Someone who does not want humanity joining the Galactic Council. Someone who benefits from keeping us out. A heavy silence settled over both bridges, as everyone absorbed the implications of what Jake was suggesting. If there was a conspiracy to sabotage the diplomatic mission, it meant there were traitors somewhere in the Galactic Council or in the human government. The political ramifications could be enormous. Finally, Admiral Theron spoke again, his voice heavy with concern. Then we have much to discuss when we reach the meeting point, Commander Harrison. And I believe the Council will be very interested in everything that happened here today. They will want to hear about your ship's capabilities and about this conspiracy you have uncovered. One more thing, Admiral, Jake added carefully. When we arrive at the Council station, I would appreciate it if you and your captains did not make too much noise about the Vengeance's full capabilities. The element of surprise is a valuable military asset. I would prefer to keep some of our cards hidden for now. You believe there may be more threats waiting ahead for us? I believe that whoever set up this ambush will not be happy that it failed so completely. It would be better strategy to let them think we just got lucky this one time. Let them underestimate us again. Admiral Theron's eyes glinted with understanding and perhaps a bit of admiration. That is a very wise strategy, Commander. I understand completely. Consider your secret kept safe with me and my officers, though I suspect that after today, legends about the human battleship will begin spreading throughout the galaxy regardless of our silence. Stories have a way of traveling faster than ships. Let them spread legends, Jake replied with a slight smile. Legends can be exaggerated or dismissed as tall tales. Hard facts and tactical data are much more dangerous to have floating around. As long as potential enemies are not completely sure what we can do, we maintain an advantage. As the communication channel closed, Pete Graham turned to Jake with an expression of satisfaction on his face. Sir, permission to speak freely? Granted, Mr. Graham. What is on your mind? That was the most satisfying 20 minutes of my entire career, sir. Did you see how fast those raiders scattered and ran? They went from feeling cocky and superior to absolutely terrified in about 3 seconds flat. I wish we had recorded the looks on their faces. A few other bridge officers chuckled at that comment. The tension from the battle was finally starting to drain away, replaced by relief and pride in what they had accomplished. Let us hope they stay terrified, Jake replied. Fear can prevent future conflicts better than actual fighting sometimes. If word spreads that attacking human ships or our allies is a deadly mistake, we might avoid future battles entirely. Amy, send a detailed report to Earth Command. Include a full tactical breakdown of the engagement. Make sure they understand this was not a random pirate attack but a planned ambush with inside information. Already working on it, sir. The report will be transmitted within the hour. Mr. Graham, plot a course to escort the Keltheran fleet to the meeting point. Standard formation, and get me a damage assessment from engineering. I want to know the exact status of every system on this ship. Aye, sir. Course is already laid in and ready. We can depart whenever the Keltharans are ready to proceed. Over the next hour, the combined fleet prepared to continue their journey. Keltheran medical ships moved among the disabled Vraxian vessels, providing emergency care to injured raiders and stabilizing damaged ships. The process was efficient and professional, showing the high standards that Galactic Council members maintained even when dealing with enemies. Jake watched the rescue operations from his command chair. He noticed that the Keltheran ships were being very careful and thorough, making sure that no raider was left without aid. It spoke well of their character and values. These were people who took their responsibilities seriously. Lieutenant Commander Laura Hughes entered the bridge from the engineering section. She was the ship's chief engineer, responsible for keeping the Vengeance's systems running smoothly. The woman had grease stains on her uniform and looked tired, but she was smiling. "Commander, I have the damage report you requested," Laura said as she approached Jake's chair. "The good news is that we came through the battle in excellent shape. The gun mounts show some stress from sustained firing, but nothing outside normal parameters. We will need to do some routine maintenance when we get back to base, but everything is fully operational right now." "And the bad news?" Jake asked, knowing there was always something that needed attention. "Not really bad news, sir. More like a request. My engineering teams would like permission to run full diagnostics on all weapon systems during our travel time. After firing that many rounds in such a short period, we need to verify that everything is still calibrated correctly. It will not interfere with our readiness, but it would give me peace of mind. Permission granted. Do whatever you need to do to keep this ship in top condition. We might need those guns again before this mission is over." Laura nodded and headed back to engineering. Jake appreciated having such a dedicated crew. Every person on the Vengeance took pride in their work and understood how important their jobs were. 3 days later, the combined fleet finally arrived at the neutral station, where the Galactic Council held their meetings. The station was absolutely massive, easily the largest artificial structure that Jake had ever seen. It hung in space like a giant wheel, with dozens of spokes connecting various docking ports to a central hub. This was where representatives from over 100 different worlds came to conduct the business of running an interstellar civilization. The Vengeance took up a position at a respectful distance from the station. Their role as military escort was complete, and protocol dictated that warships should not approach too closely to neutral diplomatic facilities. Jake watched through the view screen as the Keltharan vessels moved smoothly into their designated docking berths. Diplomatic teams would soon be disembarking to begin formal meetings and negotiations. "Commander, we are receiving a priority transmission from the Council Station," Amy Foster announced. She looked surprised by something on her screen. "They are requesting your presence at an emergency session of the full Council. The message has a high-level security clearance attached to it." Jake raised his eyebrows in surprise. "An emergency session? That was fast. I was not expecting to be called before the Council at all, much less this quickly." Apparently, Admiral Theron filed a complete report about the ambush the moment his ships docked. "The Council wants to hear your testimony directly and as soon as possible. They have dispatched a shuttle to bring you to the station within the hour." Pete Graham looked concerned. "Sir, is it wise for you to leave the ship?" "We still do not know who was behind the ambush. There could be more danger waiting. The Council Station is one of the most secure locations in the galaxy, Mr. Graham. I will be safe there. Besides, this is an opportunity to present humanity's case directly to the people who make the decisions. You have command of the Vengeance while I am gone. Keep the crew alert and ready, but there should not be any trouble at a neutral diplomatic station." 6 hours later, Jake found himself standing in the Council chamber. The room was absolutely enormous. A vast circular space where representatives from the galaxy's major civilizations sat in tiered seats that rose up toward the ceiling. The architecture was designed to make everyone feel equal, with no single species given a position of obvious superiority over the others. Humans had been granted observer status while their application for full membership was being considered. This meant Jake could speak when called upon, but humanity did not yet have voting rights on council matters. He stood in a designated speaking area at the center of the chamber, aware that hundreds of alien eyes were watching him from all directions. The council speaker was a towering being called a Malgravian. The species had crystalline skin that refracted light in beautiful patterns. The speaker's voice was deep and resonant, filling the entire chamber without needing electronic amplification. "Commander Jake Harrison of Earth," the speaker began formally. "The Council has reviewed all tactical data and reports from the recent engagement with Vraxian raiders. The testimony from Admiral Theron and his fleet has been most illuminating and detailed. However, some Council members have expressed concerns about certain aspects of what occurred. They have questions that need to be addressed." Jake stood straight and kept his voice respectful. "I am happy to answer any questions the Council has, Speaker. My crew and I acted to protect a diplomatic mission that was under attack. We did our duty as we understood it." A reptilian counselor from the Dravix Empire rose from his seat. His scales were dark green and his eyes were cold. When he spoke, his voice had a harsh, aggressive quality. "Commander, you destroyed 23 vessels and crippled 47 more in less than 30 minutes. That is not simply defense. That is overwhelming military superiority and devastating force. How does this council know that humanity will not turn such powerful weapons against us in the future? What prevents you from becoming a threat rather than an ally? The question hung in the air, and Jake could feel the tension in the chamber increase. This was a critical moment. How he answered could determine whether humanity was accepted into the galactic community or rejected as too dangerous. Before Jake could respond, Admiral Theron stood up from his position in the observation area. "If I may address the council, Speaker?" The crystalline speaker gestured for him to continue. "Honored counselors, I was there during the entire engagement. I witnessed everything that happened with my own eyes and sensors. Yes, the human vessel displayed remarkable and devastating firepower, but what impressed me far more than their weapons was their restraint and judgment." Admiral Theron's four eyes swept across the chamber as he spoke. Commander Harrison could have easily destroyed every single raider ship. His weapons were certainly capable of total annihilation. Instead, he gave specific orders to disable the enemy vessels and take prisoners. He wanted to ensure that justice could be served properly through legal trials, rather than simply eliminating the threat. Those are not the actions of a warmonger or an aggressive species. That is the behavior of a civilization that understands and values both life and law. A murmur of conversation rippled through the council chamber. Jake noticed that many of the representatives were nodding their heads or making gestures that indicated agreement in their various cultures. Another counselor spoke up. This one was a floating energy being from the Luminary Collective. Its form pulsed with different colors of light as it communicated. The Keltherans are known throughout the galaxy for having the most advanced defensive technology available. Their shields are considered the best protection that modern science can provide. Yet even Admiral Theron's fleet was rendered completely helpless against the Vraxian electromagnetic pulse weapons. How can we trust that humanity's kinetic weapons will not make all of our current military forces obsolete? What prevents an imbalance of power that could destabilize the entire galactic order? Jake had been expecting this question. It was a reasonable concern from their perspective. He chose his words carefully, knowing that his answer would be analyzed and debated long after this session ended. "Counselor, with the greatest respect, I think you may be missing an important point," Jake began. "The Vengeance is not some revolutionary new design that represents cutting-edge technology. She is 30 years old and built with systems that are considered outdated, even by our own human standards. Yes, kinetic weapons are highly effective in combat, but they are also very straightforward to defend against. Once you know they are coming and you adapt your defenses accordingly." The energy being pulsed with a color that Jake's briefing materials had told him indicated curiosity. "Please explain this further, Commander." Energy shields like the ones the Keltheran fleet uses are specifically designed to disperse and deflect concentrated energy attacks like lasers and plasma bolts. They work on principles of energy absorption and redistribution. Kinetic barriers, on the other hand, work on completely different principles. They use magnetic fields or physical armor to stop solid projectiles. The galaxy has simply forgotten about kinetic weapons and kinetic defenses, because everyone moved forward to more sophisticated energy-based technology. But the defenses exist and always have existed. They just need to be remembered and implemented. Jake paused to let that sink in before continuing. "What I am saying, honored counselors, is that humanity's apparent military advantage is only temporary. Once the galaxy adapts its defensive systems to account for kinetic weapons, our edge will disappear. Ships will start carrying hybrid shield systems that protect against both energy and kinetic attacks. Within a few years, the battlefield will be level again." The council speaker's crystalline features reflected light and complex patterns as it considered Jake's words. "Are you suggesting, Commander, that humanity's military superiority will be short-lived? That we should not fear your weapons because they will soon be countered?" "I am saying that no military advantage lasts forever, Speaker. Technology always advances and adapts. But more importantly, I want the Council to understand that humanity does not want to dominate anyone through force or fear. We want to join this council because we genuinely believe in what it represents. We want to contribute our knowledge and resources. We want to share what we have learned and learn from others in return. We want to help maintain peace and order throughout the galaxy. The fact that we have effective weapons does not mean we are eager or looking for opportunities to use them. It simply means we are capable of defending ourselves and our allies when circumstances make defense necessary." The chamber fell into thoughtful silence as the counselors absorbed what Jake had said. He could see various representatives talking quietly among themselves, debating and discussing. This was exactly what he had hoped for. He wanted them thinking seriously about humanity's intentions rather than just focusing on their weapons. Finally, the council speaker spoke again. Its voice carried authority, but also a note of something that might have been approval. The council will need time to deliberate on humanity's application for full membership. We must also investigate the conspiracy behind the Vraxian ambush, as Commander Harrison correctly identified. These are weighty matters that require careful consideration and thorough examination. The speaker paused and light danced across its crystalline surface. However, I believe I speak for many members when I say that humanity has demonstrated not only significant military capability, but also wisdom, restraint, and respect for law. These are qualities that the Galactic Council values very highly in its members. You have given us much to think about, Commander Harrison. Jake bowed his head respectfully. Thank you, Speaker. That is all my people can ask for. A fair consideration of our application and our character. The council session continued for several more hours, with various representatives asking questions about human culture, technology, government systems, and philosophy. Jake answered each question as honestly and completely as he could. Some counselors seemed genuinely interested in learning about humanity. Others remained skeptical and suspicious. But overall, Jake felt that the session had gone well. When he finally returned to the Vengeance late that evening, his senior officers were waiting eagerly for news. Pete Graham, Amy Foster, Carl Bennett, and Laura Hughes had gathered on the bridge to hear what had happened. Well, Pete asked as soon as Jake stepped off the shuttle. How did it go? What did the council say? Jake smiled, feeling tired but satisfied. It went better than I expected. They are going to deliberate on our application and investigate the ambush conspiracy. No final decision yet, but the mood seemed positive overall. Admiral Theron spoke on our behalf, which helped considerably. When will we know their decision? Amy asked. Could be days or could be weeks. The council moves slowly and carefully when making important choices. We just have to be patient and wait. 2 weeks passed while the Vengeance remained stationed near the council facility. The crew used the time to perform maintenance, run drills, and simply rest after the intensity of the battle. Jake spent his days attending various diplomatic functions and informal meetings with council representatives who wanted to learn more about humanity. Then, on a quiet morning during the 3rd week, Amy Foster turned from her communication station with a huge smile on her face. Sir, we just received official word from the council. I am reading the message now, and you are going to want to hear this. Everyone on the bridge stopped what they were doing and looked at Amy expectantly. The young lieutenant took a deep breath before speaking. The Galactic Council has completed its deliberations. Humanity's application for full membership has been approved unanimously. We are officially members of the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We have full voting rights and all the privileges and responsibilities that come with membership. For a moment, nobody moved or spoke. Then suddenly the bridge erupted in celebration. Officers cheered and clapped each other on the back. Pete Graham actually jumped up from his seat and pumped both fists in the air. Even Carl Bennett, who rarely showed emotion, was grinning from ear to ear. Jake felt a wave of relief and pride wash over him. This was what they had been working toward. This was why they had risked everything to protect the diplomatic convoy. Humanity had proven itself worthy of joining the galactic community. Well done, everyone, Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. This is a great day for humanity and for Earth. Contact Earth Command immediately and relay the news. They need to know as soon as possible. Already sending the message, sir, Amy replied, her fingers flying across her controls. As the celebration continued around him, Jake walked to the large view screen at the front of the bridge. He looked out at the council station hanging in space, illuminated by the light of a nearby star. Beyond it, he could see other ships from dozens of different species, all coming and going on various missions and assignments. Humanity was now part of this vast interstellar community. They would face new challenges and opportunities. They would make new friends and probably some new enemies as well. But they would face it all as equals, as respected members of galactic civilization. Pete Graham came to stand beside Jake, following his gaze out into space. What happens now, sir? Where do we go from here? Now we go home, Mr. Graham. Back to Earth to report our success and prepare for whatever comes next. But this is just the beginning. Humanity has taken its first real steps onto the galactic stage, and the future is full of possibilities. As the Vengeance prepared to depart, a fleet of council vessels assembled in formation around the old battleship. It was an honor guard, a gesture of respect and welcome for humanity's newest member species. Ships from the Keltheran Empire, the Dravix Republic, the Luminary Collective, and a dozen other civilizations took up positions alongside the human vessel. Admiral Theron's face appeared on the communication screen one final time. Commander Harrison, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I want to formally welcome humanity as our newest member. It has been an honor to witness your actions and to call you an ally. I look forward to working with you and your people in the years to come. The honor is ours, Admiral, Jake replied warmly. Thank you for everything you have done to support our application. We will not forget your friendship and advocacy. Safe travels, Commander. May your journey home be peaceful and uneventful. The channel closed and Jake turned to his navigation officer. Mr. Graham, take us home. Full speed, aye, sir. Setting course for Earth. Estimated travel time is 4 days at maximum velocity. The Vengeance's massive